Hello, this is Raymond Jetson, and I am thrilled to be here with you again to share in another Half My Age highlight. And as I've shared before, this is a moment where I get to spend time with amazing people doing wonderful things to make the world different, to make the world better, to challenge the world in some way. And they happen to be, give or take a few years here and there, half my age. And I am just so thrilled today to be able to spend time with SP Sian-Pierre Regis. Welcome, my friend. I am so thankful to you for making time to share with me.
Of course, I'm excited for this conversation. Marcy from Encore put us together and has spoken so highly of you, and I'm honored to just be sitting with you to chat.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and certainly Marcy is a special person in this world. And so I'd just like to dive in, and as I do with each of these conversations. So, who is SP in 25 words or less?
Wow. I think, well, I am driven first and foremost. Uh, Someone who's always been social justice oriented, compassionate, empathetic, sensitive, and trying to be kinder every day.
No, man, that was a series of really powerful words, and certainly would like to unpack some of them. But I'd like to do it, if you will, in understanding better your current work. We were talking before we started recording here. You know, life's been a whirlwind, and so talk to me and talk to those who will view this about what is your current work.
Yes, so I just released in theaters my debut documentary feature film called Duty Free. And Duty Free follows the story of my mom, who was a single mom and raised two kids in Boston. She was a hotel housekeeper. And she worked every day of her life until she was fired at age 75 for just being too old, really. And so we went on a bucket list journey to do everything she could never do while she was working. And some made up for past regrets. Some were just, fun and exciting, like skydiving or joining Instagram, where she now has 50,000 followers. But she's trying to get back on her feet and finding it really hard to find a job. Everything has moved ahead of her. Everything's on LinkedIn or you're socially networking. And so the film is one that's deeply about love between mom and son, but questions what we're going to do with a generation of older people who don't have enough money to get them through retirement age. We got press everywhere, from CBS Sunday Morning to USA Today. We were an #1 Apple News story. It just really went everywhere. And spurred us on to make sure that the themes within the film, ageism, economic insecurity, and the need for care, particularly intergenerational care, became a national conversation. So that's where we are now.
And that's amazing, and it's powerful work. I could not help as I watched the whole experience around the release of the documentary happening. I could not miss the juxtaposition between this absolute joy filled experience with mom, and this bucket list, and this discovery that was happening for her, but also this other reality of ageism,
Mhm.
and that the trigger for this was a negative experience, and that just because all of these wonderful things are happening here, that the reality is that this is a woman who was deprived of an opportunity to meaningfully work, and faces a serious set of challenges in rejoining the workforce at this point, which is not just her experience.
Yeah, wow, you explained that so well. That's exactly right. There were a lot of decisions in the filmmaking process, which, lasted about 5 years, where I needed to decide what this movie was about. Was it about the anger and the passion that drove me to start it, which was her being fired and it being maybe one of the most cruel, uh, decisions that was I'd ever seen in my life. She was left with 2 weeks' pay and told to leave the apartment that we were raised in. Was it about that? Or was it about the joy that we found together and the love and sort of this like renewed existence? But I decided that though it erred more in the latter direction, that this was about love and care and family, that we could explore all of that while also showing, the real issues that so many people face that look like my mom. And luckily, we went viral early on with the trailer. It was seen 38 million times, and we had so many comments below the video of people saying, "This happened to me. I was fired for this or for that. I feel invisible as an older person in this country." And it was those messages and those comments that make their way back into the film and allow us to zoom out of my mom's story for just a second to show that though this is a fun bucket list film, that there are very real issues at play here. And my mom is on the early side, that there's a tsunami of more stories that are to come.
And so, if your best hope, if your heart's desire for this movie is realized, how is the world different?
Mm.
What happens as a result of it?
Wow. Well, I think the first thing has already happened for me, and we were mentioning this earlier, and that's that my mom felt seen. And I think that I've done my job in making her feel whole again, and making her feel valuable and bright and malleable and all of the things that I always knew she was, but that society, for whatever reason, decided she wasn't. But I think now that that goal has been reached, it is about talking about ageism and showing both my community of young people, but of our culture everywhere, how pervasive it is, that it's everywhere in the comments that we make every day, jokingly, in the, decisions that we make on the, floors of offices every day. And because I think that if young people in particular can see how pervasive it is and understand that age is the one protected class that we all experience. We may not all be gay or black or men or women. We'll all get old, and that every day we are self-harming our future selves. And I think if I can make ageism a topic that is just as discussed on, diversity, equity, inclusion conversations as the other protected classes, that maybe as a culture we could do a little better of a job in protecting our future selves.
That is really powerful. Thank you for sharing. My mind leapt to when you talked about your mom being seen and being whole in that moment. When we consider the fact that there are 10,000 folks a day turning 65 in America, and that will happen to 2030, what will it take? And this was my thought. What will it take of us as a people and as of communities to make certain that those folks feel seen and whole and heard? Thank you for prompting such a powerful message. One of the things that we like to talk about, I like to talk about, is the wisdom of the elders. It's probably rooted deeply in the fact that I am one at this point. But how has the wisdom of the elders impacted your journey thus far, whether it is with this wonderful movie or in other ways?
Yeah, along this journey, I was given a gift to be able to see my mom, not just as a mom, but as a human being, with complicated history and textures, and and I think most people just see their moms or their parents as their moms or their parents. They're annoying, they're calling all the time, all of these things. I was able to see the history that made my mom who she was, and I think unfortunately our elders are stripped of their histories once they become older. We see them as 2D, right? It makes it very easy to look away from them and not look at them. And I am now so much more present when I'm speaking with older people because I want to know about their history. I want to know how they were formed into the human beings that they are today. And I sit with their wisdom and their history is just like their learned existence. And I think like that's another thing that I think is really important for us as young people to do is to, be present, look at somebody who's older than you, don't look away from them. Because my mom's legacy is that much richer to me now, and allows me to have a better sense of who I am by way of who she was. And I think we just need to give older people that space, and let them impart their wisdom upon us.
Inherent in that statement is the belief that there is wisdom that is of value to me, and I think that that's really an important message. Far too often, I hear, as I did in a Zoom call, a panel I was on recently, there was this really bright young man for whom I held great respect just in my brief meeting through this electronic medium. But so present in his conversation was this slightly spoken message of the older folks need to get out of the way so that we can now do this thing. And totally absent from his framing was even just a modicum of belief that there was something that these older folks might have that might actually help me to be more effective. And they may even, surprise, share my perspective and the outcome that I'm seeking to make in the world around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the executive producer of our film is named Chip Conley, and he wrote a book called Wisdom at Work, which is a great book, all about this idea that yes, of course, elders have something to give, and oftentimes it's in this EQ, right? That we consistently talk, in Silicon Valley or in all these startup culture about data, moving fast, quantitative, like all of this. But what we're missing out on is human relationships, true human relationships that aren't transactional. And then oftentimes older people, because they've lived so much more lives, they've had so many more relationships, they have this emotional quotient that is what is the core to making us human. And so, yes, like we need to value that in the workplace. Not everything is about the bottom line, which of course older people are, can certainly add to, but it's about the interconnectivity of who we are as people, about compassion, about culture. Those are all things that I think older people are over-indexed in, and that we in this culture that's very transactional could learn a lot from.
So you mentioned earlier about seeing certain characteristics or practices in people who are closer to your generation. You've talked about some of the learnings from this experience with your mom and the wisdom of the elders generally. So even at this point in life, how are you thinking about what you pass on, not only to your generation, but to those who will be coming behind you?
That's such a big question, Ray. I think on this journey now, it's really important for me that people find compassion in in their everyday. Like seeing if it weren't for me, my mom would have been, likely on the street, and nobody would have ever known about her story. And I realized that just by way of me wanting to tell her story, of me wanting to listen to her, of me wanting to lift her up and be empathetic for her, we have an opportunity to change the world. And at the end of the day, what are we here for? And I believe that if we can find compassion within ourselves and really dig deep there, then we would have every individual will have a better chance of figuring out what they're here for.
Which is a powerful thing. And so I actually want to ask you two things. You mentioned earlier when we talked about those 25 words or less, and you used compassion, which you've come back to. You also talked about the importance of social justice and kindness. So how does who you see yourself as, how do you think that shows up in how you go about impacting the world?
Yeah, I think, I really we live in such a politicized world.
Unfortunately.
And, or just culture really, but I think about how to make change within a world in which you can so easily be written off. So when I say, I'm a social justice advocate, there are a lot of people who say, oh God, progressive.
Another one of those.
Exactly, nothing's gonna be done, dreamer, idealist. But I think that if I can show up in this world with my heart first, with kindness, being willing to see anybody and listen to anybody and tell my story, our story, then that's the way that I will be able to make change. Much like I had to decide whether this film was going to be social justice first or one that was about family first. And I made the latter decision because I knew that more people's hearts would be open to hearing that story and learning. And so I think that has been what I've realized through this journey is you can be a social justice advocate and be rah-rah, and you can have, make the change that you want to in the world. But if you can show up as a human first, that you are here to do good and be kind to anybody and everybody, then you can get a lot more people on board, on your team to listen to you. So that light bulb went off for me, and I think that will affect all of my future work. It's meeting people where they are and having the conversation as they would like to have it, as just another human being.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you the final question of if you could say one more thing about making a difference in the world, what would it be? But I think you just said it.
Is that being kind or?
Yeah, and just showing up as yourself, being kind, and understanding that you can be a true social justice advocate. You can by being your real self, and by I loved leading with your heart and your personhood, because so very often what I see in today's world is we lead with these personas or philosophies or other tags rather than this is who I am and here's what I feel passionately about.
Yeah, and we're not, at the end of the day, we're not in a constant battle against each other. And our experiences are collective if only we allow the other people to speak and they are open enough to listen to us. Not to get all Oprah, but one of the most powerful things she's ever said, and I'm sure somebody said it before her, but was, people want two things in this life. They want to know, do you see me? And do you understand what I'm saying, right? And I think that is so true. That's all we want. We all want to be seen and understood. And that's where we connect as humans. So give the space to allow for that to happen. And I think so much more change can be made.
Sian-Pierre, I am thankful for your time, your willingness to share it with me. I am thankful for your work, and I am thankful that you were able to capture this experience that was about your mom, but about so much more and so many others, and to create this platform for such a really important conversation in this time. And so thank you for all of that. And I have so enjoyed speaking with you and learning more about you and your work. And I look forward to just continuing to share life with you and our shared efforts to make this world a better place.
Thank you so much, Ray. And again, I'm just blessed to be here with you and to have such a great, honest conversation. So thanks for making these spaces available. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And thanks to all of you who take the time to view this. There are other Half My Age highlights that I'd invite you to take a look at. I think that they are as rich as this conversation has been. Thank you, my friend, and take care.
You are.
I do appreciate it.